Hey, what's up? This is AR Glasses here. Recently we've done a few videos on the cheaper end of the techwear spectrum, those things that you'll find on Taobao or AliExpress or those Chinese techwear brands, and the retailers or other things you should be looking to avoid because this is certainly an area with its pitfalls. My advice for people looking at dropshippers or these kinds of products is in essence to be a little bit more open to spending a bit more, because that unlocks a lot more potential for things which do a better job of incorporating performance or wearability into their design, meaning that you're going to get something that you're going to want to wear a lot more long term. There's loads of things in the back catalogue to check out, but if you are specifically interested in these kinds of brands or these exact kind of looks, then you might as well get them from a more legitimate retailer. So this week we're looking at Inshadower.me and a handful of items that they were kind enough to send me. But why did I pick these guys? Because at face value it kind of looks like they're selling some similar things to many of the other retailers. Well, firstly, these guys are an actual legitimate retailer. They carry their own stock, they hold a bunch of different brands, not only Inshadower, but Catstack, Nosikism, a couple of others as well. What that means is when you buy stuff, like any other retailer, you receive the things that you're ordering, which sounds pretty basic, but some of these dodgier places that doesn't often seem to be the case. While that doesn't automatically mean everything is going to be amazing, I do feel like in this space, to some extent, you get what you pay for. You're also going to get the original version of these things and not the knockoff fake version, which is obviously always going to be of lower quality. This means prices aren't necessarily going to be the lowest versus some of the AliExpress shops and dropshippers and stuff. Everyone's favourite techwear cargos that we've looked at a few times now, they come in at $60 here, which is more than I paid for any of my versions. But you can guarantee that these are the real ones. 2 out of 3 of the ones that I received definitely were not, and yeah, were absolutely awful. Other thing is shipping time. These guys post worldwide via DHL, which takes like 3 to 5 working days, I think, after dispatch. A word of warning, this can be quite expensive. Checking to the US or to the UK, I think it's something like $40 shipping, which if you're only ordering one item, obviously that is pretty substantial, but it does mean you've got a far higher chance of your stuff actually showing up and doing so in timely fashion. Now we should probably check out some of this stuff and I'll give my overall thoughts at the end. So first here we've got 2 things from Catstack, a jacket and a pair of pants from SS21, and actually that's another thing about using an actual retailer, is that they're going to carry the latest stuff from these brands, whereas often the dropshippers for whatever reason seem to be focusing on things that came out several years ago. Anyway, together they make a pretty aesthetically cohesive combo. I think with a couple of accessories it's quite easy to see how this can build out the kind of look that you're probably after if you're looking into these kinds of brands. The urban utility vibe is pretty strong, I think, without going into that warcore kind of cringe direction when everything's got plate carriers and knee pads and straps all over it. But of course, if you do want to go for your Call of Duty cosplay, you could use this stuff to do that. Let's look more into the cargos first, whose main standout feature is these big diagonal zipped pockets that you'll find at the front here. I think this is a welcome alternative to the paratrooper straps that you will have seen hundreds of times on all kinds of cheaper techwear things. These also look a little bit more refined than your typical quite bulky cargo pocket that you'll often find in cargo pants of this kind of price point. They do open a surprising amount. There's a few little subdivided sections in here as well, so there's some organizational capacity. And when these are empty, clear benefit of these, they do look very sleek against the leg, so they don't bulk out that silhouette at all. Although of course, once you start putting things in here, particularly anything that is too bulky, that is going to be quite noticeable. Things in there do feel more secure though than in a typical low-hanging cargo pocket where things tend to swing around the knee when you move quite a lot. And with those organizational spaces too, that's another thing that just helps keep things a little bit more kind of tucked away and a bit more secure. These pants have molly webbing as well. This is the right size, so it is actually usable, which is good. It's just about enough to fit a small pouch on there, so you've got a bit of extra room for customization or personalization if you want. But equally, if you're leaving it bare, it's just another aesthetic detail. It doesn't really get in the way or anything. Quite a few things at a fundamental level are similar to those pants from Elfric that we looked at a few weeks ago, which confirms my suspicion that those ones were effectively the legit version, but rebadged with a different logo. The overall shape and construction is quite similar, with that relaxed, tapered fit coming down to the jogger cuff at the bottom. It feels like there's maybe a little bit more room in the seat, but ultimately these do suffer a similar issue of the bottom of these riding up when you're moving around in them, and in general they don't quite have the level of maneuverability that I would expect from a technical pant. The material also feels the same as the older model, which, yes, although does have water resistance, it does feel quite substantial in hand, and it also has two-way stretch as well, which I didn't mention in that previous video. But ultimately, these do feel pretty warm, and you're going to get a bit sweaty in these wearing them over a long period of time. I perhaps overstated that a bit in the last video. I don't feel like they're as bad as the H&M bin bag ones, but these certainly wouldn't be the ones that I would pick for rooftop chases or urban parkour, or really anything kind of too intensive an activity where you're going to be working up a bit of body heat. Despite that fundamental similarity, there are some clear upgrades Catstack have made between those older cargos and this more recent version. If you look at the waistband, this more resembles a proper pair of pants, using the same material as the rest of the pant. It's got belt loops, it's got a little button at the top as well, which in my mind is much better than the sweatpants style waistband and drawcord that you have on the old ones. Pocket interior has a quite nice soft cotton feel, which is better than the old version, which seemed to use the same material as the rest of the pants. It's got two back pockets rather than one, and the front pockets are horizontally cut rather than vertical, meaning that when you're sitting down, contents of them feel a lot more secure. And as mentioned before, the change to the cargo pocket array is a benefit, I think, both from an aesthetic and a functionality perspective. Of course, if we're disregarding the teeny tiny ones down at the ankles, which, let's be honest, that is clearly done for looks, no one is putting anything in those. Before we move on to the matching jacket, I wanted to take a look at these Ashfire cargos, which I was quite excited about. This is a brand new brand, SS21 is their first collection, and I feel like these are to Gorpcore or Hikercore what Catstack and similar brands are to Techwear. That is providing a lower cost entry point than some of the more well-known brands in this space. These pants are around $50, I think, and capture that kind of look really well. On the website, they're styled in a very directional way, you know, full hiker-core outfit, going out there on the trails, and I think that stuff looks fine, but I feel like these can also be worn in a much more casual way. I've just got some, you know, pretty basic things here, and you can see how this builds into quite a nice, effortless, casual-looking streetwear outfit. From that perspective, I feel like they're a good thing to experiment with, without having to feel like you need to change up your entire wardrobe. The first thing I noticed when I put these on, though, was the material difference from these compared to the Catstack ones. They are a much lighter weight nylon, and that combined with the more relaxed cut, you know, these don't have a jogger cuff or anything at the bottom, they do have a little bit more space there, makes these feel way breezier. You'll also find some knee articulation further improving their maneuverability, so yeah, I immediately found these more comfortable when putting them on. You'll see over the knee as well there's a contrasting material. Looks nice because you've got that little bit of a colour difference, makes these look a bit more interesting than if they were just a plain pair of pants, but also feels a bit tougher as well. So if you're going to be crawling around on your hands and knees in the woods looking for mushrooms or something like that, or whatever else you might want to do on your hikes, then yeah, these things have got you covered. These are XL, same size as the Catstack cargos, and they're just about long enough for me at 6'2", which is great. The slightly wider leg opening definitely fits a chunkier shoe better, something like an Air Force One, Air Max 95s, you know, even some hiking boots if you want to lean into that technical hiker aesthetic a little bit more, although I would definitely suggest, because these are a very light colour, using those more neutral tones as opposed to the heavy contrast of black is definitely a good idea. These aren't cargo pants, but the hand pockets are both very oversized and they have this 3D construction about them, which kind of gives them the look of a cargo pocket, but just quite high up on the pant. Although these are really roomy once you get your hand in there, actually getting your hand in there is a bit of a problem in that these are strangely tight against the pant. I found it a bit annoying having a phone in there, which is something that obviously I take in and out quite a lot. It doesn't have any back pockets either, so this is your only option. So some big areas, not much organisation, and doesn't feel as easy as it could do to actually make use of them. And that's a real shame, because this was really my main gripe that I had with these pants. Aside from that though, I thought these were quite decent, definitely my preference over the Catstack ones, and I feel like make this kind of look quite accessible and gives you a taste of some of those performance features that you'll find in more premium products. Now let's get back to the Catstack jacket. I have to admit, I made an error here. I initially asked for a size L, but after re-looking at the measurements, and particularly after last week with the size L jacket, I thought it would be a good idea to switch, but unfortunately it was a bit too late for them to do that and they had already shipped it out. So excuse this looking a little bit short on the arms here. For reference, I would normally buy a medium in jackets, and this I'd say kind of fits like maybe a slim medium on the body and more like an S on the arms. Anyway, some of my comments here are similar to the pants because this uses the same material as those. That means it's a little bit less structured than a 3-layer technical shell, but you've got a bit of maneuverability in there thanks to the two-way stretch of the material, which unfortunately is inhibited a bit by the arms being a bit too short. Again, that is my fault. I can't notice any articulated elements over the shoulders or under the arms or anything like that, so I feel like this probably would still kind of pull around a bit more than you would perhaps expect it to. Good job, unlike the anorak from before, you can undo this the whole way because, yes, similar to the pants, you will likely get a little bit hot and sweaty in here having this done up the whole time. This is far cheaper than a 3-layer membrane shell, so we have to anticipate that that same performance is not going to be there. Although, as with the pants, I do feel like this is more comfortable than the H&M Techwear shell. Looks wise, I think this is much better than a lot of their older products that have all the text and everything all over it. This is a sleeker, a more refined, a more mature look. I think it looks less like a costume piece for that reason. I think the pocket layout is better thought out too. You've got enough places to store a few different bits without having to resort to massive bulky pockets. These diagonal chest ones have a decent amount of room in there, and in a real pinch, you could use those oversized arm ones, which are split into a couple of sections if you really needed to carry a couple of extra pretty small items. Like with the pants, there's some webbing too, although there's only one rail, but it's enough to put a little bit of extra flair on there if you really wanted to, or a carabiner for your keys or something like that. The hood is one of the weaker areas here. It's not particularly big, it doesn't have any way of adjusting it either, so you'll probably find in adverse weather conditions, it's not quite going to give you the protection that you want, and in fact, if it's windy, you'll no doubt find this blowing down quite frequently, which is a shame because that definitely does hamper the usability of this in poor weather. It is stowable though, which is a bonus, particularly because, as I say, I don't think this is going to be particularly useful, so you can at least keep it out of the way and keep this jacket looking a little bit cleaner. As I mentioned before, these two make a clear pair aesthetically, and I think some attention has definitely been paid to cohesion between the two. You can see that similarity running through there with the molly webbing, with the zip placements, these kind of diagonal shapes there. Very similar ideas and styles are being used between both pieces, which makes them look and feel more like a uniform. In many ways, it is like a better version of the H&M water stop tech stuff that we looked at a couple of months ago. I think it looks better, it fits better as well, and the material feels better, even though ultimately it does still suffer some similar issues that's going to limit the amount that you're going to want to wear this. Anything high output will have you wanting to wear something else instead, and a couple of issues like the hood, like the kind of lack of articulation throughout, means that these don't feel to me like the ideal choice for really wearing as your everyday go-to kind of stuff. But we have to compare directly to other retailers in this space and other examples of techwear clothing in this kind of price bracket. I feel more confident buying this than some of those other things, both because of those incremental improvements that we noted between this newer Catstack stuff and some of their older items, and the assurance that what you're going to get is what you're actually ordering and not one of those cursed products that we've seen before. So those are my thoughts on the Catstack items and those Ashfire pants as well. Hope you guys enjoyed taking a look through some of this stuff. Definitely better than what we've been looking at in the past couple of weeks for sure. Does this kind of stuff and this kind of price point appeal to you? Or maybe you've had some direct experience with Inshadower already. If so, definitely leave your thoughts in the comments because that's going to be super helpful if anyone is thinking about making use of this retailer over and above some of those other dropshipper ones, which I would definitely recommend you avoid. But that's just about enough for this video. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed it, please do give it a like because it is super appreciated. And as always, we will be back next week with another video. Thank you so much for the great response on last week's video. Super glad that my pain could be your pleasure in that one. So shout out to the Short Meadow who suggested that I frame all of the different pocket branding from the different versions of those cargos. Fantastic idea. And shout out to Lance as well, that kind of comment makes it all worthwhile. Anyways, thanks for making it all the way to the end of the video. If you want to catch some more, there's going to be links going up at the top, and if you haven't subscribed yet, then definitely consider doing so because there's going to be some more cool techwear content coming up soon. Yeah, we've got fun things in the pipeline, lots more brands to talk about, things that we've never covered before on the channel. So yeah, good stuff. Keep an eye out.